Let's start with Harris topping Trump in favorability ratings and also in the latest polls.
This is an entirely different race than it was just a week ago. And one thing is for certain, it is close. We've had 4 major polls come out just since Joe Biden left the race and endorsed Harris. You have anything from a Harris +2 to a Trump +3, basically a tied race, all within the margin of error. We've also gotten some initial battleground state polling that's encouraging for Democrats. A tie in Pennsylvania, Trump up by just a single point in Wisconsin. That's better than Joe Biden was doing in both of those states. He was trailing in the 538 polling average right before he left the race. And it has been quite a honeymoon for Vice President Harris. Just in the space of a week. So a week ago, 35% of the country saw her favorably. Now it is up to 43. That includes a big jump among independents. She is now the very rare politician viewed more favorably than unfavorably, at least for the moment. On the other side, we've seen kind of the opposite happen for Donald Trump. Coming out of his convention and that assassination attempt, we talked last week, he had got to a 4-year high in favorability of 40%. Now it's down to the mid-30s, back where it's been for a long time. And J.D. Vance, this has not been a good debut week for him. The number of people who view him unfavorably jumped by 8 points in the space of a week. Look at that gap, 15 points underwater overall, Robin.
It does appear that with the voters, that they're more pleased with this current matchup than they were with the rematch with Biden and Trump.
Yeah, we've seen a big shift in that, Robin. Just a week ago, 14% of the country said they were unfavorably inclined to support either one of the candidates. They were.
J.D. Vance and Ron DeSantis are cut from the same cloth. It's the Sugar Man cloth. And it's so funny that that is like supposed to be the future of the Republican Party, which is like a technocratic approach to Donald Trump's policy agenda, which is basically just like post hoc pieced together after Donald Trump says something, not realizing that like Donald Trump carries his base in a cult-like fashion. And it's not actually the sound policy making that is the reason why people like him. And it's a complete misread from the Republican Party. This is something that I've mentioned a bunch of times. Republicans don't realize that their agenda is just genuinely reprehensible and that people don't like it. If you're just like a nerdy guy who is like being nerdy about your racism or being nerdy about your sexism, you can't just like deliver detailed analysis in the form of scientific racism to try to justify your belief system. They are leaning into that because it's a genuine misread. I think that they just like bought Twitter. Elon bought Twitter and they just thought that they could like manipulate people into thinking this way. They thought that, you know, they were genuinely popular, not realizing that like all of the policy that they've pushed for are not necessarily things that people are desperately demanding. And I think that they're just going to keep doing that, even though that exact mentality led to awful, disastrous 2022 midterm outcome for them. And honestly, like the fact that the Republicans or the fact that the Trump campaign thinking that they were going to still run against Joe Biden went with like an easy base pick with J.D. Vance, even though it was like just an awful choice overall, is a clear-cut indication that they are too far gone and too lost in the sauce to change course, change trajectory, change their messaging. I've said this time and time again. I said this in 2022. I said this on multiple different occasions for the past couple of years now. Republicans personally forgot how to run in a post-Trump world. They forgot how to run like good campaigns. They forgot how to appeal to normal people and have mistaken their own success in state legislatures for genuine popular momentum and broad support for some of their most violent policy agendas. And it's really weird. They're just getting really fucking weird with it. And it's not just me saying like, oh, Republicans are so fascist. Like they are literally just leaning into that. And I don't think they understand that like there is a level of how tapped in the average normal, you know, possible Republican Party voter is, and how grossed out they will be when they constantly see like America is run by cat ladies who don't have children. Like that's not going to work, man. That's weird. Like you're just fucking weird. Establishment Republicans thought that Donald Trump was too volatile and potentially was going to be poison for the broader electorate. And at the time I said, in 2022, I said two things. Either they continue leaning into this weird shit and they lose the elections going forward, or they successfully radicalize like a large enough base of support beyond the MAGA cult into being just as insane, into being just as like genuinely, openly, mentally ill, absolutely get broken by this kind of 24/7 news cycle, like constantly pumping out this fucking narrative over and over again, or they're going to negatively polarize towards that sort of thing and either stay at home, not vote, or vote for the Democratic Party. It seems to me right now that the Republican base of support is still kind of crumbling. Like, I don't think they've picked up additional people that are brain rotted or at least in enough numbers as the people that they still hemorrhaged from the base of support. That's why this pick was ass. David Sachs, Elon Musk, and Tucker Carlson, with the exception of Tucker Carlson, listening to David Sachs, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump Jr. is the dumbest fucking thing you can do. It looks like they didn't pick JD to win the election, but the lockdown and MAGA future, none of the reasons listed were to help win Ohio. You don't understand. There is no fucking MAGA future with JD Vance either. Okay? I think the only real reason for JD Vance was he's the bag man, as someone in the chat also correctly pointed out. Like, he brings in tech bro support. He brings in the big bag, a big old bag, from a lot of right-wing VC-funded, VC-backed Silicon Valley weirdos and losers. And that's it. I love that these guys are letting their fucking freak flags fly on the timeline and being associated with this image that they're fucking insane, because they objectively are. Look at that. Like, the Republican Party used to uphold this image of like elitism and all this shit, and now they got dudes with face tats. Everybody knows what it's like to live under a Trump administration. People don't like the way that they felt under the Trump administration. Maybe some people have like rose-colored glasses in the way that they look back at that. There's always like a nostalgia component. Some people definitely remember the stimmies that they got, and the stimmies were good. It's never fucking bad to give money to people. People love that shit.
Where you call them the double haters. Now that number is cut in half. And check this out. The enthusiasm gap that Democrats have worried about, at least for now, entirely erased. Democrats enthusiastic about Kamala Harris's candidacy, just like Republicans are for Trump. And this is a striking number. 49% of independents say they are enthusiastic about Kamala Harris. Compare that number to Trump's, and you see how this race has been turned on its head, Robin.
All right, Rick, our thanks to you.
Here in the U.S., there are new signs of strength for the Kamala Harris presidential campaign, including new poll numbers and a growing financial haul. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump is turning up the heat on her with a series of personal attacks. Nancy Cordes is at the White House. Nancy, tell us more.
Good morning, Michelle. The Harris campaign says it brought in $200 million in the first week of her candidacy. That is a record. It's also touting more than 170,000 new volunteers. Now, the campaign says that this is a sign of pent-up interest in the race as the party converges around a new message about the Republican nominees, arguing they're weird.
Are you actually excited about Kamala? What is this, brother? I'm just giving you what is going on. I'm giving you what the actual battlefield looks like. As far as Kamala Harris goes, I have my reservations. I've talked quite a bit about what I think she could possibly do that would fuck up the bag that she currently has. I told you that a lot of the double haters just hated how old Biden was, that the Democratic Party's platform across the board wasn't the issue. It was actually who was saying it that was the issue. And I showed you at the time the poll numbers for down ballot Democrat senators, okay, outperforming Joe Biden by 10 points in some of these key fucking states. I told you this over and over again. Just like I told you for years that Biden is too old, he would be a one-term president, and that was ridiculous to drop the incumbents advantage and many of the other complications that come with having a really old president. I'm glad that the Democratic Party got together and got their shit in order and actually did something smart for once. But in terms of my own personal opinion on Kamala Harris, I need to see more. Obviously, she is still very much responsible for a lot of the actions of the current administration from where I'm standing, especially in terms of like what's going on in Gaza. And I need to see a change in not only messaging, but like actual action from her on that front. Americans don't necessarily give a shit about foreign policy. And I think Trump recognizes that, or rather, Americans not only don't give a shit about foreign policy, but Americans also are more pro-peace and like less war than we give them credit for. Donald Trump is currently running on no new wars happened under my presidency. Look at how many wars happened under Joe Biden. Luckily for the Democratic Party's prospects at this upcoming election, a lot of that stink is not on Kamala Harris. This is a massive W for the Democrats. They should lean on that and change trajectory. If you were to straight up ask average Americans, like, would you rather have 800 military bases all around the planet or free healthcare? I think that the majority of Americans, possibly by like overwhelming majority margins, would say, no, I want healthcare and I want education. I want infrastructure instead of having 800 military bases. Let's have 400 military bases and then have the other shit, you know?
we are going to win.
Vice President Kamala Harris didn't just rake in campaign cash this weekend. She also experienced a polling surge. In a new ABC News Ipsos poll, her favorability rating rose to 43%, up from 35% just a week ago. Among independents, it shot up 16 points, as her opponent, Donald Trump, saw his drop by 8.
She has no clue. She's evil.
Trump tested out a series of new personal attacks this weekend.
I'm running against a low IQ individual.
Kamala Harris is deadly destructive.
It's so funny that he's running with this when, like, the Republican Party, like establishment Republicans who are psychos themselves, like Mike Johnson, for example, recognize that that is not a smart play. Mike Johnson immediately was like, yo, cut this DEI shit out. You guys are, this is not a smart play. But they can't stop themselves. That's the one instinct they have. Is she a scary attorney general who loves locking black men and women in prison, who is like clever and devilish and very radical? Or is she a dumb who doesn't deserve her position of power at all and was a DEI pick? These things, like, you have to figure out at least one of those two angles. They try to do this with Joe Biden too. They would be like, Joe Biden is so old, he doesn't know his ass from his elbow. And then when he would pop off and have like a unique moment where he could, you know, deliver like an uninterrupted message, they would turn around and go, look at how evil and scary he is. And you can't do both. Which one is it? Is he actually a clever devil, or is he a fucking dumbass? It's crazy.
Destruction of America's borders is completely and totally disqualifying for her to be president.
Harris had this response at a fundraiser in Massachusetts.
And you may have noticed Donald Trump has been resorting to some wild lies about my record, and some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
She got some backup from potential running mates.
If he wants to see a bum, he ought to look in the mirror.
Who held events on her behalf around the country.
We're not afraid of weird people.
Dude, I love that he's like trying to look younger. Yeah, his biggest weakness is that he appears much older than he actually is.
We're a little bit creeped out, but we're not afraid.
They also went after Trump for this unusual plea he made to Christian conservatives.
Christians, get out and vote just this time.
This one was crazy. Like he went on Turning Point Action and just fucking banged. Okay.
Just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians.
The Harris campaign said he
like, what the fuck do you mean, bro?
was signaling an end to democracy.
Like, what does that even mean? Why did you say that? Even when I saw that, I was like, what the fuck? Is he all right? Like, is his brain all right? What the fuck is going on? He also said, I'm not Christian. Yeah, that part, I think he said, I'm a Christian, but it sounded like he said, I'm not Christian. That, like, you're not going to get a lot of play there. I think, like, Republicans are not going to hear him saying, I'm not Christian. It doesn't make sense. Why the fuck would he say that anyway? Why would he say, I'm not Christian? Maybe at most a Freudian slip, you know?
Republicans weren't sure what he meant.
I think he was just trying to make a hyperbolic point that it can be fixed as long as he gets back into office and all that.
I think he's obviously making a joke about how bad things have been under Joe Biden.
Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, gave this.
Yeah, no, you guys are doing great. Great way to defend those statements. It's like, that is a completely nutty ass thing to say, okay?
Explanation to CBS News.
So I think he's saying, get out there, make sure this election matters, because if you don't, the next 4 years, we may not have a real election if the Democrats give illegal aliens the right to vote.
What? Oh, we're just joking. And then the Republicans are like leaning into that. I genuinely feel like this is how some leftists and how some rad fems, rad libs in general are like, when Republicans would be like, you guys are hysterical, blue-haired, joy killers, woke scolds in general. You don't want to have any fun. You don't want to have anybody have any fun whatsoever. And then some people will hear that and be like, no, that is literally me. I think that the best way to possibly moralize everything, the best way to show how fucking real I am and how committed I am to my own personal political ideology is to show you how much I fucking despise normal people having fun and like wear that on your fucking sleeve. It's something that I obviously hate and have spent the past 5 years of my professional career ripping into the leftover, and because I think it just plays really poorly. Like, nobody gives a shit. The only thing people have are their fucking treats. So why are you trying to take people's treats away? It's just dumb. And that is basically what the Republicans are doing on the other side. They're annoying. They're fucking loud. And they're really, more importantly than anything else, gross, okay? They're gross. They're sweaty. They're really fucking sweaty. And they love moralizing about their own worldview, about how, like, you have to abide by their standards. I think that is something that Americans broadly do not respond positively to.